we're here today to celebrate Mom's 78th birthday. There's a lot of family here, and we appreciate Michael doing this film for us. Go it on the other side. Go it. See. Wait, I forgot.
We're cool. We're cool.
Oh, be the cameraman.
Go for it.
Go for it.
Happy
birthday
to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Grandma. Happy birthday to you.
Make a wish.
Okay, I made a wish.
All but one now.
Who's gonna me blow these off? Where's Morgan? She's sleeping.
Yeah, all right. No help there.
Oh, that's pretty darn good.
Hey, not bad.
And he said your lungs were okay? Your lungs were okay?
Well, I'm glad it's the only fire we had, though. I thought maybe something.
Yeah, you got that lasagna. It's already overcooked.
What I remember about childhood is living in the city of Flint, where I had the whole north end of my freedom to run. Would walk all the way downtown to movies, go out to parks near there, before we moved to Montrose when I was 11 years old. Then I went to Maple Grove, except for when I went to the seminary for 1 year, year and a half. Picked up my girlfriend there, still got her.
You didn't pick me up at the seminary.
Yeah.
Oh, I have a lot nicer memories. I remember when I was a child, we always loved to go barefoot in the summertime. And we'd walk down the lane. It was real sandy. I still can remember feel that soft sand on my feet. And once in a while on Sunday, Mom always made a great big dinner. But after dinner, we'd take her back to the woods with us for a slow walk and pick flowers. And that was all that's still in my memories. There were a couple big stones in the woods, and we'd sit there and talk. And it was just so nice. A lot of memories that when you're real young. And at that time, I got along well with my sisters. Did just simple things at home. We didn't go anywhere, it seemed like. The neighbors would come over, we'd play ball in the cornfield or any over the milk house, but it was all fun. Didn't have to spend a lot of money, just had a lot of fun memories. And then, like I say, we went to St. Mike. I went to St. Mike's school. Then this show-off kid from Flint comes in the 6th grade, and wintertime comes, and of course, us farmers, we never had ice skates or skated. Didn't know beans about it, and this show-off comes out there with a stocking cap pulled down over his ears, and he's skating on the front lawn of the school. Remember all the ice skating you do? It must have been about 7th grade, 8th grade, when you tripped me one time on the ice. Us girls would walk out there, of course, had to be known. And he tripped me on the ice.
I think it was 7th grade.
Yeah, 7th grade. And I had a concussion. I was in bed a few days from that. So he used to always say he married me because he felt sorry for me because I was never right after that. But we had a lot of fun memories, and we went in high school together, and didn't have a car, of course, at that time or not. But he'd always flirt with all the girls and call them honey and sweetie and everything else. But he always called me Drip. I never had a nice name. I was Drip. So finally, I began to call him Drops. We got known as Drip Drop in high school. Well, then for the prom, at that time, we just had a dance in our local gym and had records we played. But it was nice. I was the only girl in my grade that had a corsage, which he brought. I thought was maybe kind of special. So just life went on that way. A lot of nice
Of
memories.
course, the war was going on when we graduated.
Yeah.
Everybody left for the service. And I went within 5 weeks after I graduated. Cadets.
Yeah, I enjoyed my childhood. But the sad part is my sister Katie always says she didn't like her childhood. I loved mine. She must have been more adventurous, but I was more common. And we did work in the fields. We had a hoe, weeds out of the rows between the beans, and sugar beets, which I hated, because first you plant them, then when they get big enough, you got to pull them out, then you top the top off, put them on piles, take them to the thing. Oh, a lot of hard work. And when you harvested beans, they would pull the beans, and then you'd rake them with a fork, make big piles and come pick them up again. But it was jobs you didn't like, but it was fun being together. But she never, I feel bad when she says to this day, she never liked her childhood, and I loved mine so much. She was much more outgoing and more fun than I was, I'm sure. But she was also a pain in the butt sometimes. I always kept a diary. Just did, and of course, once I started going with my dad, the worst thing I did was make comments. My own feelings, don't ever do that. Because she'd hold this diary, no matter where I'd put it, she'd find it. And we only had one bedroom upstairs. It had a lock on the door. And she'd go in this bedroom with the diary and lock the door and read these things back to me till I wanted to break that door down. I wanted to kill her sometimes. But as the years got older and you get married and you have family, we're closer now than we ever were in our life.
She also used to give me the diary.
Yeah, oh, she was a pain. But we get along really good now. She's my best friend, I guess.
When I still lived in Flint, my folks let me have the whole run of the North End. And you could always, in the evening, get some kind of a pickup game with ball. And on weekends, I would walk over 3 miles to a movie. Back then, they were 10 cents for the movie, 10 cents for a hamburger, nickel for pops. So for a quarter, I could have a good afternoon. But it was a long walk for a kid my age. But my folks let me do it, and I did it. They used to have continued stories at the movies. So you had to go every Saturday so you could continue the stories. I had a bicycle also. I could cover the whole end of town.
But didn't you tell me about Candy Kisses sometimes?
Walking home, I'd buy a half pound of Candy Kisses and eat. They'd all the way home because Candy Kisses were then 10 cents a pound. People are wondering how we got the cottage. Margaret was working for my folks and she became my babysitter. Even though my folks took my brother Bob wherever they went, they let Margaret take care of me. And I was about 4 years old. She came down with TB, but she inherited a whole lot of money, so she built this cottage. And when she got out, I used to go out there every year for about 3 or 4 weeks. I was real friendly with her. I'd go down at Christmas time with her. And after I got out of service, when she went on welfare because she was so sick, she gave me the cottage, or otherwise it would be taken away by the city of Detroit because she was on the welfare.
Well, when I was young, we always walked to school. Whether it was cold or hot or rainy, you walked to school. It only was 1.5 miles and didn't hurt us at all. Walked to school, but going home was always fun because when you walk to school, you might meet the neighbor or they might be 10 minutes ahead of you, but going home from school, we'd all start out together. And it was fun. And I can remember on the way home, there was always we passed a thorn apple tree, which are little tiny apples. But we'd all try to get to this apple tree first as they ripen because you get the best ones to pick. That was fun. And then we always did funny things with your school. You know, one day the boys always had basketball games to practice in the winter. The girls had nothing. So the nun would say to us, why don't you girls go over and make a visit? Well, first of all, we went to daily mass every morning. You always got there 8 o'clock, had mass, and then you started school. So the nuns would say to us girls, why don't you go over and make a visit to church? Well, we quite often did, but finally we thought we just prayed enough. It was time for some fun. So we started looking around, and we could see the belfry up to where the bells rang. And there was a ladder. You take the ladder up the steps, and you get upstairs. There's another ladder. And we got way up to the belfry where the bell was, and it looked so nice up there. When I tell my kids we did, oh, you didn't do that. Well, it really was just climbing up where you probably shouldn't have been, but it was fun. But we did a lot of just fun, plain, simple things. Seems to me we did a lot of... I was happy. I enjoyed my childhood so much. And a lot of people say I hated school. I can truthfully say I love school. I love school. And then when the school year ended, the nun would always ask, of course we had nuns, would always ask if any of you can stay over, like next week, the last day, and help us shine the desk and so on for next year. And my mother always let me, and I loved that. I felt there was about 3 of us girls would stay and help them clean all the desks and so on. But I really enjoyed that part, being around the nuns so much.
When I first came out to St. Mike's, always had some little girl you'd kid you about, one other girl in school. I swear I never talked to her in my life, separate. But they always said it was my girlfriend. We put her initials on the trees and this and that. But she, 8th grade, said, I don't want anything more to do with you. So in the 9th grade, Mother and I kind of were chosen as girlfriend and boyfriend. But I went away to seminary for the 10th grade and half the 11th. When I came back, I started dating her. What little bit we did get to go. Between 11th and 12th grade, a friend of mine wanted company when he went out, and he dated a girl from our class. So we got to go out about 6 or 8 movies or something between our 11th and 12th grade. But then he went away, and my dad would give me a car about once a month, and that's about all we ever dated.
Also, though, this is so funny. When Dad was in the seminary, he wrote me letters, which he wasn't supposed to do, I suppose. And he wrote me a couple of letters. And, of course, I still have them. But I remember the first one came, and Katie had got the mail on that day, and she comes in the yard and waving this letter. Oh, it's from Bill. It's from Bill. I thought, sure, she was crazy. Well, then she run around the yard, so I wouldn't let, give it to me for a long time. She was always getting mad or upset or something. But he actually wrote to me and was in the seminary.
When I was in service, I decided that we would get married, so we set the date for when I was supposed to get a commission in service. We were going through an 18-week school, and there was 3 schools in this country, and they all graduated the same day. But for some reason or other, some general wanted to be able to go to all 3 places, so we moved theirs one place back 1 week, and mine back 2 weeks. So Mother had to have the wedding date moved back 2 weeks after she had all the plans made. But everything seemed to go off real good. It was hard at that time to even get beer. Grandpa had a heck of a time getting it for us. We paid him for it later, but Grandpa got the beer for the wedding. And back then you had a reception at the house where her mother neighbors killed all the chickens, actually the chickens, so we could have something to eat. And then we had a dance above a bar in New Lothrop for the wedding dance. And the band gave us a wedding, music for nothing as a wedding present, and the bar furnished a place because we'd have to go downstairs and drink. They gave us that free, so we had got off pretty good. And different places, Mom had me pick her up the day of the wedding. Instead of not seeing her till after the wedding, I actually took her to the church.
Well, when Dave was in the service, he invited me to come down and visit him. He was at school, navigation school at that time in Jackson, Tennessee. And I went down by train. I was going to go with his mother, but she worked in the factory at that time. And finally she decided she couldn't get off. So I thought, well, I got my ticket. I'm going. And I went all by myself, which is no big deal. I went on the train. My parents took me to the train station in Saginaw. I took the train down there. I got there. We weren't married. And I said to Dad, now I wonder what people had thought of us. At that time, it never entered my mind to do anything wrong, but I went. Dad had rented a room right across from the college where he was going. I was there, I think I stayed a week or something like that. He had a room all rented for me, and it was very nice. But then after we got married, I went back with him and went to California. And that part was nice. But then he had to go way across country and actually left the East Coast to go overseas. Well, that's kind of hard. You're newly married. You're frightened. You don't know anything. But you catch a train, you come back home all by yourself, and life takes care of you. Got home safe.
One of the bases we transferred with, just all navigators and our families, we got on the train, and it pulled into this town where we were supposed to go to about 4 in the morning. Instead of telling us to get off the train, they sidetracked the whole Pullman car, left us go to sleep till we wanted to sleep. Of course, then I went from there on a cattle cart, I guess you'd say, from there to the East Coast. Got on a ship, spent 23 days on a Liberty boat going over to Italy. I think Columbus probably made it in better time than we did. Then we stopped in South Africa for a little overnight. And then the next day we got into a British luxury liner, French luxury liner that was run by the British. We had 3 meals plus tea. And tea and crumpets. But I don't like tea. And I went to one of their dealers, and they said tea, it was tea. And then we went from Naples to Bari in a boxcar. Had fire on the bottom floor, which boxcar got on fire because we were cold. It was November. But then I got to my base, and we lived in tent for the next 9 months, 4 to a tent.
Talk about when the war ended and they celebrated.
Well, the war ended. We celebrated, of course, but I had to throw a lot of combat in between there, and I was only a few feet from the officers' club, so we did a lot of celebrating. Also did a lot of ping pong playing overseas.
Talked about Victory Day and turning the cars over. Where were we at that time?
Oh, you're talking about way back of... After I got back from overseas, we went out to Sioux Falls, South Dakota, and that's where the World War II ended. And we went downtown to celebrate with everybody, but we didn't want to get in the crowd, so we went on top of a couple of 2-story buildings and watched down as the guys raised heck. And they started the car on fire, and the police department came, and then the men took away the fire hoses and started squirting everybody with them. It was quite a big celebration.
Crazy, yeah.
But shortly after that, I went to Colorado Springs and then got discharged and came home.
Colorado Springs was beautiful. Well, Walla Walla was pretty too, but Colorado Springs was a beautiful place. We both thought that was real pretty there. Very pretty.
It still is.
Yeah.
So we
Well,
got
after
to-
Dad went overseas, I got a job in Chevrolet in the office. I loved my job. And I had just a bedroom rented from about 2 blocks from where I worked. And then you had to eat all your meals out. Once in a while, they let me have breakfast. She was Clark's, their name, were wonderful people. And you just did this. But then this is way before we first got married. No, this was before we got married. I was
That
there.
was after we got engaged.
Yeah,
I
after we
got
were
you.
engaged. But then afterwards, when Dad went overseas, after we were married, he went overseas. They wouldn't give you time off. It was war, and they wanted you to work there because all the men were gone. So they wanted the women to work in the shops. Well, I tried to get time off, even for our wedding. They would not give you time off. So Dad said, "Hey, she's quitting. She's going with me. So you quit." Then the next time after he went overseas, I got a job in a factory, and I hated it. I was making bearings for airplanes. I can remember still making these bearings, a metal thing. And I hated it. It was dirty, but I'd been spoiled because I worked in the office before that. But it was a job, and everybody was doing that. And mostly women were in the factories at that time. Men were all gone. I didn't like it, but it was all right. Had a lot of nice friends.
When I got discharged, we came back home. Figured we stayed at my parents for a little while and looked for a house. But just before I went to work, General Motors went on strike for 5 months. So my dad let us have an apartment at his house. Don't think we even paid him for it.
Mm-hmm.
But we bought all our furniture with money I'd saved during service. And then April of that year, when the shop started back to work, we bought this place on Duffield Road, which we're still on. And it was a dirt road then. And in March, you couldn't go up and down it. And our mailbox was off way down on the corner of the road. And there was no trees between here and there. You could see the mailbox. Now you've got a woods between here and there. The day I was supposed to get my report card, my brother Bob helped me get into Buick, and I worked there about 5 weeks before I went in service. And they let my seniority go on. And we came back after we got this house in Duffield Road. Some years you were up, some years you were down. And one year we were down quite a bit. My brother got laid off from the shop. He bought a gas station downtown, and he found out he couldn't handle it when he got called back to the shop. So I went down for over a year. We partnered in running a gas station, taking the kids down there, working every night. And that's when my shop started going crazy, where I was working 7 days a week, and so was he. That the work was just too much for both of us. We got rid of the gas station. But it was fun. We took the kids down there. But I never got home any night of the week before 9 o'clock.
The fun part of the gas station, though, in the gas station front was like a glass thing where they kept candy bars and gum and so on. And Dad had work every other weekend at the gas station. Of course, I didn't like it, but I'd take his dinner down and all the kids. And it seemed like every time I get there, after a while, Shirley was just about that age. Before I knew what she was doing, she'd be behind this counter and she was eating a candy bar. The candy bar is just fascinating Shirley, I think. I still think of that, her going behind that glass case and get a candy bar.
The gas station is now gone.
Yeah.
We were in service and spent a lot of even days. We bowled a lot, almost every day. But when we came back, money wasn't that plentiful, and I was working. We didn't bowl again then for about 20 years till we got about 40 years old. Then I joined a league in Flint with my 2 brothers, and eventually switched to that and bowled a mixed doubles with Mother and I. And we did that for about 10 years. Before her legs started bothering her, I quit bowling with her. Now I bowl singles yet twice a week in Flint with seniors.
So that's why Dad's such a good bowler. He's bowled so many years.
Well, for our first kid, we happened to be with 2 other couples who had always played poker on Saturday nights. And Mother got her pains or something like that about 2 o'clock in the morning, but since it was 3 weeks early, she didn't believe there was any chance in the world she could be ready to have a baby. But about 8 o'clock the next morning, we went over to her parents and told her what was going on. And they told us to take their car and get to the hospital as fast as we could. Well, the baby still didn't show up till about 2 o'clock that afternoon. But it really was something to go through, and having, like everybody else, having the first one. There's stories to go with each one of them, but
My mom and dad didn't realize how bad our car was. We had an old junky Ford, and it was really the pits. So the time we got to their place and asked what I should do, there's no telephones, of course. They said, take our car and go as fast as you can. Well, I get to the hospital. Of course, I think I'm dying. I didn't understand labor pains. Then you're screaming. Aunt Katie worked in the nursery at St. Joe's at that time. I guess she saw Dad and said, what are you doing here? You're not, what's wrong? And he said, well, I guess Pauline's going to have a baby. She said, well, not yet. She's not due for 3 more weeks. Well, about 2 o'clock, I had Elaine. And I thought, and I love Elaine dearly. Don't ever think I don't. I do. But when I saw this baby, I'm expecting a beautiful baby, real chubby, red cheeks, lots of hair. And when they handed me this baby, I thought, oh my gosh, this little baby's so tiny. You could see her veins in her forehead. No hair, no eyebrows. And looked to see she had 10 fingers, but no fingernails. And I thought, oh my gosh, this is awful. By the time she turned out to be 3-4 months, she was beautiful. And Grandma Reinhart, even though she didn't have any hair, well, in fact, his brother kept calling her Termite or Baldy because she was so little and she was bald. And he always would call her Termite or Baldy. And I didn't like it because I liked the name Elaine. But Grandma Reinhart thought she was an angel, completely no matter how she looked. Well, over the years, I realized the time she was 6 months, she was beautiful. At the time she was a year, she had long curls. She was beautiful. But she was little and dainty. Everybody loved Elaine. She could walk around, and she was just so
at 9
adorable.
months she was walking.
Yeah, she was just absolutely adorable. So they do turn into like a butterfly turns, no. What turns into a butterfly?
Caterpillar.
Yeah, see? Caterpillar turns into a butterfly. She turned from a little baby that I thought was so ugly to a beautiful little girl. And she did.
And we had not much trouble with most of the rest of them except Joey. Everything seemed normal except her blood pressure was high the day before. But when the baby was born, normal. But when Elaine came back, they had a private nurse on her, and she'd gone into fits. Convulsions or whatever you want to call them. And she almost died with Joey. But we had a lot more after that with no troubles.
When Patty was born, though, I was about due, and I'm petrified of mice, especially, or snakes. Well, I went to the bathroom that night, and a mouse ran through the bathroom, and I jumped up on the sink while my water broke. And I thought, gee, they say go to the hospital. I thought, but no, I haven't got any pains or anything. So Dad said, well, your water broke. And I mean, it was just awful. So we started for the St. Joe's Hospital, and we kept getting closer and closer. And I said, gee, but every time I'd move, I'd have water all over. But I wasn't having any pain. So Dad said, you want to go in the hospital? I said, no, I'm not ready. You have to have pain first. So we stopped at a little restaurant to have coffee or something, and every time I moved, water. I said, no, we're going somewhere. Went to the hospital. Well, she was born later that day, but I wasn't in that.
That poor restaurant had water all over
Oh,
the floor.
God, I was so embarrassed. I wanted to die. So I remember her birth because it was gross with that mess. And like Dad said with Joey's, we had a lot of complications with Joey's, but I guess that's meant all part of life.
And was it Jackie who went there and they
Yes.
sent you home?
Yeah, you think after you had 13 kids, you know just when to go to the hospital. Well, this was number 12. We had Jackie. Thought I was doing just perfect. I get there, and the examiner says, oh, you're not going to have a baby yet. And I stayed there all that day. Finally, they sent me back home, false labor. Well, the next day I went and had Jackie. But I guess no matter how many kids you have, you're never all sure you're going to have a baby. So at that time, then after I got home with Jackie, I don't know why or what, but I got an infection in my womb. I was so sick. The doctor came to the house, put me back in the hospital. So here I am with this little baby, a ton of kids. Poor Elaine was
Dad's
probably
got
left with
11
them.
kids.
Yeah, all these kids there. When are you going to do all these kids? So I guess we hired a girl to stay here for a while. And his mother came over a lot. By then Elaine was gone. She's probably glad she was out by then. But so surprised. And he told me I had an infection in the womb. I had to go back to the hospital again. But I have a little planter. It's a rabbit planter sitting in the dining room probably somewhere. But that is always a memory to me because the neighbors went together and brought me this rabbit filled, it was near Easter by this time, with flowers in the hospital. So I always see these memories when I had Jackie and went back to the hospital a second time. So there were a few times when they weren't all perfect, you know. But life is never always perfect. There, this is the planter. Probably needs a good drink, but that's the one that neighbors got me when I went in the second time for Jackie. Yeah.
In 50 or right around that age, Margaret gave me the cottage for $1. And we started going out there and staying the whole summer, going out Labor Day and come back, going out Memorial Day and coming back Labor Day. And a lot of odd things happened out there. We had a wood stove in the kitchen, living room, trying to keep warm, and a wood stove in the kitchen to heat water so she could do the washing. And it was a long ways from being convenient, but Mother put up with all of it just because I wanted it there, I guess. But the kids did have a lot of fun out there, and they still seem to talk about it, about memories.
Well, I think us getting a cottage was the best thing ever happened for our children. We could never afford to take them on vacation, all this stuff, and they all, well, I should say most of them. I don't think your mom enjoyed it that much, really, because she was older and she was very reliable, a good worker, and without thinking, you put jobs on their shoulders. I can see it now. But Patty liked to swim more. But the younger kids, they just absolutely loved out there. And I would go, but I can't say I loved it that much because it was twice as hard to work out there. You had to dip the water first, no drinking water, heat the water, and it was so hot in the summer to do the laundry, hang on clothes on line you could hardly reach. It was not easy, but it was well worth it when I look back that I could see it's all learn to swim and ski, and it's their life. And now when I hear them, they all talk all these memories out there. You'd allow the kids to stay up a little later, go out at night, and they get night crawlers. But we always had a few bad accidents too out there. You know, not dying accidents, but one year we often had a fire in the ground where they roasted hot dogs and so on. And we thought it was all out and everything. And Joey had ran through it later that night, and he burned his feet really bad. We ended up at St. Joe's Hospital with him. Then another time, I know it was cold out there and we were freezing, and we had in the living room an oil stove. And our boys had gone swimming, you know, no matter how cold they're going to have that swim. And they came in from the lake, and they were standing by the stove, all trying to get dry and warm. With between the bunch of them being silly and goofy, whatever, Kenny got pushed back against the stove, and he burned both of his butt really bad. We took him to the hospital, and there he is in the hospital with his butt all burned. So we had a few dumb accidents, but you know, you survive and you go on, but you don't forget those things.
As long as I was on hourly rate, I only took 1 week vacation and stayed out to the cottage all the time. We never took vacations. We never went farther away than Bay City and back. But once I got on salary where you had to take 4 weeks to 5 weeks off vacation, we started traveling around the country. And we did take all the kids up to Quantum Falls, stayed at a motel up that way, and the mosquitoes were out of this world. And then we did take them to two or three of them to Niagara Falls, and I remember that was an All-Star Day, and Kenny was watching the All-Star game on the motel television set, and then they went to McDonald's, and me and her went to Ponderosa to eat or something like that, because McDonald's is where kids love to go anyhow. So
we took the kids also different times to that park.
Oh, I used to take the kids to Metropolitan Beach in Detroit,
yeah, they love that.
which is still a beautiful place to go. It was all it used to cost us was 50 cents to park, and you could spend the whole day there.
Take your own picnic lunch. That was fun, yeah.
And the place is still there, but I don't know how much people go anymore. But every so often you read in the paper where the water's not swimmable. They eventually built an outdoor swimming pool there, and Kenny just, at his age, about 6 years old or something, could swim, and he goes off the diving board, and he looked kind of funny with him, as little as he was, with all the rest of the big kids that he was diving off his boards with. But we quit going to there after that. Well, I remember going through high school. My mother was always around. My dad was usually on second shift, so I didn't know much of him, except if he said something, it was law. That's all there was to it, but he never did go to any of my basketball games or take us to anything. My mother went to most of them. And Dad loved his garden, really, really loved his garden. And chickens and orchard and woods and berries. Also had grapevines, pears, apples. And he was just in his glory when he could be out in that stuff.
In fact, his produce was so nice from his garden that he would have a little stand out in front all summer where he'd sell produce from his garden, and he loved garden work.
Let's talk about Pa.
Pa? Oh, my dad was so different than his dad. My dad was very loving, and he always wanted to help you if he could. But when he got mad, you want to be far away from him as you could. I know we'd be out forking beans sometimes, and if you do the wrong thing, oh my God, he had such a temper. But the most time I remember him being, now this is a bad time, and he had gone to work second shift, and I was cultivating with the horses, and he had told me how to take them off and hang them just so in the barn, so when you come on again, they just go on right. Well, obviously I didn't do something right. Next morning he called me out there to look at him, and I was trying to tell him, and they got so mad at me because I had hung them up wrong, and it was twisted like, they took one of the belts and he whipped me till I had welts on my leg. When he got mad, I said, you wouldn't be far away as you could. But at another point, he was the most loving person in the world. He always wanted to give you something. And when we were little at home, he'd often go to the mill and get feed ground for the animals. He'd always take us kids in the back seat, 3, 4 or 5 of us, and we'd always stop and get an ice cream cone or something. He was always giving you something. And when Joey died, I'll never forget this. He was not a talker. He was a man of few words. But when Joey died, we came back to the house after he had died, and my mom and dad came over. And Pa, this big, brave man, he says, here's Pauline, go get yourself a nice dress to wear at the wedding. Well, we were so hard up right then, I didn't care about a new dress. But in his heart, he gave me that $20 bill. He just wanted to do something to ease your heartache. And I'll never forget that. Because my mother was very loving and kind, too, but she was not a giver. No, you had to earn what you got from Ma. No, she was very good, a hard worker. But my mother was like his dad. She had a beautiful garden. She canned everything. And then they would butcher meat. She canned meat. She worked very, very hard. She had chickens. She sold eggs. She sold cream. So my mother worked different life than his mother and Pa, too. My dad worked on a farm, only 80 acres, but he also worked in a factory. So he was gone a lot. And they both were workers. Where Dad's mom worked only during the war in the factory, and then after that she quit and stayed home again. But they were different. But they were wonderful people, all of them. Were very good to us.
One thing she didn't ever mention was growing up in her house with no electricity, indoor bathroom, until her dad got in the shop.
Yeah.
Before that, he just worked the farm. But once he got the shop and the farm, he remodeled the whole house. It's still a beautiful home.
Yeah, I was in high school by the time we got, or was I 8th grade? I forgot now.
You were about the 10th or 11th
10th grade before we got electricity.
Bathroom.
Bathroom. Oh boy, I just couldn't believe you could actually sit in the throne and go to the bathroom in the house. We always had this little path, out, and I don't like darkness. I used to hate to go off the toilet at night. Well, got so Mom would make us girls take one or the other, Kathleen and me, or Marie and I, or something. Go to the toilet together in the winter time. When we had Elaine, Grandma Reinhart was absolutely thrilled. And my mother didn't have a phone. My mother was busy on the farm, and she didn't come over, but Grandma Reinhart came over every morning, showed me how to give Elaine a bath. In fact, some neighbors she knew had a bassinet, they come at that time, and she got it for me, and the best thing I ever had. It was like a changing table, you'd say, but it had a bathtub underneath it. And I always kept it in the dining room, right by the register, because it was nice and warm there. But I remember his mother come over, she showed me how to give Elaine a bath, how to wash her tongue, wash behind her ears. She was so helpful, but she loved Elaine. She just absolutely did. And she was a wonderful mother-in-law, and I always feel bad to this day when I hear someone run their mother-in-law down because I had a wonderful one. She was so good to me. But she was a fun person. My mother was much more serious and working, where his mother, she belonged to Bridge Club and a euchre pinochle club, and she'd go on the go all the time. She was a party person, but she was a happy person. She enjoyed life. Yeah.
Well, I guess as well, I would like to remember that I did my share during this war and did the best I could raising these kids. I was an officer in service. I was a supervisor in the shop, and I retired quite young. But the kids were all pretty well taken care of, and I hope liked me a little bit.
I hope I'm remembered that I loved my kids. I just loved, one day a while ago I was getting Dad on all these divorces, and I've always said to Dad years back, if we ever get divorced, I get the kids, I get the house, I get the car, you can have all the rest. And he said, okay, I'll take my retirement. I said, that's okay, just so I get the kids. He said, well, I could live without the kids. I said, not me, I'd die without my kids. I hope my kids remember how much I loved them. They'll never know how much I loved them. I like my grandkids, and in my Bonko Club, most of women talk more about their grandkids, and they love their grandkids more. I think I'm the worst grandma in this world. I love my grandkids, but not nearly as much as my own kids. Maybe I'm selfish. I don't know. But I do love them.